Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. We're going to talk today about one of my absolute favorite brands in AAA, one of the early brands that I kind of fell in love with as I started writing about minor league baseball. My name is Paul Caputo. I am happy to be joined by Emily Jaenson, who is the general manager of the Reno Aces. Emily, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul.
I want to touch on, first of all, your background with the team. This is your second stint with the team. You worked for the Aces in 2013. And I want to bring that up because in 2013, I was in Reno for a conference for work. And I was writing back then what was just this goofy blog that nobody was ever going to find. But I tried to get to baseball stadiums when I could, when I was traveling. It was November. I called the team. And the media relations manager, whose name I cannot remember, and I feel really terrible about that, but the media relations manager at the time, she said, "Yeah, come on by." She says, "We'd love to have you." And she took my friend and me, just because I was an author for a goofy blog with zero readership. And she spent an hour with us, took us all over the stadium, showed us around, took us into the clubhouse. I have a picture of myself in my work clothes, because I ducked out over lunch during the conference, in the Aces clubhouse, like standing on the logo. And so it was a total thrill for me early on in my writing career about minor league baseball logos. And there you were at the same time, you were leading corporate sponsorship from 2013 to 2016. So little did I know that, 8 years later, we'd be talking as fellow podcast hosts. So before we get started talking about the Aces, could you tell me about the podcast that you host?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, that media relations manager, I believe, was Shannon Siders.
It absolutely was. Thank you for remembering that. I've been combing through old emails, trying to find that name. Shannon Siders was so kind and so generous with her time. Where is Shannon now? Do you know?
Shout out to Shannon. She is in Louisville now, okay, and she's working in tech.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I know. Interesting the way our careers ebb and flow and expand. And it's fun to keep up with everybody that's made their way through Reno or that I've met along my career journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm so pleased that you were able to pull that name from your first stint with the team, again, which was in corporate sales. And then you were called back to the team in 2018 as, at the time, the only female general manager in AAA. And as we were discussing before we started recording, there are now 4 female general managers in AAA, which is great news, great progress for the game that we love. And you host a podcast that is relevant to that topic. So yeah, I wanted to ask you about the podcast that you host.
Yeah, I host a podcast called Leadership is Female, and the podcast has been underway for almost a year and a half now. I think we're about a year and 4 months in, and the whole purpose of the podcast is that there's this quote by Marian Wright Edelman. She said, "You can't be what you can't see." And that had been my experience as GM of the Aces. I was at baseball winter meetings in 2018 in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I got the chance to take the stage with some other female leaders in baseball and talk about my career journey. And after I left the stage, I got a line in front of me, as most speakers would, and the line consistently, each woman who came up to me said, "I didn't know I could have this job until I saw you." And that's when it really hit home that it was, I used to say, oh, it's an honor and a privilege. And yes, there's responsibility, but I didn't know what that responsibility meant to me or to the industry. And that's when I found my voice. And I didn't want it to be about me. I didn't want to tell my story over and over again. There are women in this industry that are crushing it, baseball or any other sport. And I wanted to highlight their story so that we could lead the next woman forward. And I will say, for the guys, for the allies out there, this podcast is also, and can also be for you too. There's a ton that you can learn because each guest reveals the tips, the tipping points, the hurdles that she overcame, in order to take the seat at the top that she's got today. So it's pretty cool, been a lot of fun.
Well, that's fantastic. And I'm going to absolutely hit subscribe. I was scrolling through the episodes here. I saw that you've, it's not just in baseball, it's throughout sports.
It is.
The most recent episode at the time of this recording is someone who I just spoke to from the Portland Sea Dogs, Emma Tiedemann, who is their play-by-play broadcaster. So thank you for sharing that. I'm very glad to have discovered that by talking with you, and I will absolutely subscribe and listen to Leadership is Female. So thank you for that. But we are here to talk about the Reno Aces. The series that I write on sportslogos.net is called The Story Behind the Nickname. The Aces are one of the first teams that I featured there. And it was really interesting to me to discover or to learn about why the Aces had this more sort of serious, refined, grown-up logo rather than, the trend that we see towards, the cartoony, kid-friendly logos. So if you wouldn't mind taking me through, in 2009, obviously before your time with the team, but I'm sure you're familiar with the background. Can you take me through the sort of thinking behind having a more serious, less kid-friendly logo for a team in Reno?
Yeah, so this is going to be my interpretation of the story through the game of telephone and hearsay over my 6+ years with the Reno Aces. So Reno, depending on where you're from and what lens you're looking through, can look a lot of different ways. It can be, Little Vegas. It can be Reno 911. It can be this reflection of the old. And I'm not really sure about the mindset that everybody was in 2008, 2009, when they came up with the Aces and why it was so serious in the first place. But the reason why it stuck in that sort of more serious tone is we're just not a silly bunch. Like putting on a silly face or logo would, I think, be inorganic to the team that we've been and the team that we have consistently been for so many years. And the Aces came from a nod to the gaming industry in Reno. We didn't want to focus on gambling, but we wanted to pay attention. And the ace has a lot of different meanings. It could be, you could be the ace in the hole. You could be the ace, meaning you're the best on the team. You could just be referring to that deck of cards. It could be a lot of different things. And I think we liked the flexibility of the Aces. And probably the neatest part about the logo, if you notice, is there's a diamond in the A. And that diamond in the A has a few different meanings. Diamond as in the baseball diamond, and diamond as in our affiliate, our OG affiliate, and still our affiliate today, and now for the next 9 years, the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I thought that was a really cool nod to the game and to our amazing affiliate.
Certainly that diamond there, it represents a diamond that you might see on a playing card. And then, as you say, that wink and a nod to the parent club, which is one of the advantages of these new 10-year collective bargaining agreements or player development contracts is that you can commit a little bit to a parent club. And knowing that you've been the Diamondbacks farm team affiliate since 2009, since your inception, it's hard to envision the Aces as being anything else other than a Diamondbacks farm club. So I love that little detail that it's that diamond really has a triple entendre, as it were, because you've got the parent club, the baseball diamond, and then the diamond from a deck of cards. And the A, well, so let's talk about the A here for a second, because it's there are a lot of A logos out there, and I feel like every time you see an A logo, people say, oh, that looks like, and then they name some other team. This A is pretty distinctive and very much has a playing card sort of feeling about it.
It does, but I'll say that anytime I wear the hat traveling, people ask me about the Braves.
Yeah.
So, that's that is a bit of confusion, but yeah, it is more similar to the playing card or the deck of cards A. And I think something interesting about our logo set as well is that we don't have an R as part of our official branding. We've played with what we've called the R spade over time, which was an additional logo that we had worked with, but we hadn't had a standalone R like most teams have the first letter of the city in which they reside. Pretty traditional baseball thing. So don't want to leak anything on the podcast here, but stay tuned in the spring because we're doing I don't know, how did I introduce it to you, Paul, earlier? Like a refresh.
I like it.
A much ado about nothing for those who are not design geeks and marketing hacks like myself or like Paul. But it's a nice refresh of what we're doing. And we've also consistently been launching logos since my time as GM. We started with Los Corazones when we participated and continue to participate in the Hispanic Heritage Celebration that is Copa de la Diversión. Last year, well, actually for the 2020 season, we had launched the BLC for the biggest little city.
Right.
That launch had its day, and then we had our shutdown from COVID, and then we had our relaunch in the 2021 season, which was a lot of fun to create that additional logo as part of our logo set, and actually add an on-field cap, which is something we hadn't done for a while. So it's exciting that in 2022, we'll have some new designs in this logo refresh, not a new name, nothing too crazy, but updating our current logo sets, and potentially you might see something new because we like to keep it fresh.
This is almost too much of a tease here. This is, I will, as we talked about, I will look forward to covering that for sports logos. I love writing about these logos. You say much ado about nothing. I think that the sort of logo and branding geek that you describe, I think that audience is getting bigger and bigger. I mean, the existence of this podcast is, says something about that. I think social media has a lot to do with that. I think the fact that, we're exposed to so much visual stuff now. Baseball is just such a visual game. It's the branding in baseball is so important. You mentioned the BLC logo, and I think most people are probably familiar with the expression biggest little city, but can you talk about two things with Reno, the biggest little city expression and your BLC logo? And then I'm going to ask you also about Archie, your mascot, who is named for the Reno Arch.
Yeah, well, those things are tied together. The original arch in Reno, and I should have the year memorized, but I do not. Sometime after 1868, because that was the year that Reno was founded as its own city, there was an arch built over the main drag, Virginia Street, the original Virginia Street. And on that arch, we proclaimed Reno as the biggest little city in the world. And that moniker still rings true today because honestly, I use it, and not even tongue in cheek, but I'll use it pretty regularly to describe the business climate that we have here in Reno and the people that are a part of this city. I do believe that we are the biggest little city. We've got big industry, we've got big things to do, we have a lot going on, but we still have this small city vibe, small city access, where you can be a part of something that you might consider larger that you could only get in a, Chicago, LA, New York, but it could be right here in Reno. And right here in Reno, we have incredible access to the outdoors, the mountains, the hiking trails, the ski, the golf. I mean, this is an outdoor playground like no other. And we love to really lean into that moniker of the biggest little city. And so we wanted to memorialize that in a hat. And that design, the 3 letters BLC, are modeled after the original sign. It's sort of that take on the neon look without the neon color. And then we also picked the star that is on top of that arch and placed that just above the L on our red hat. And choosing red was intentional. This city, I feel, has also evolved a bit because we've welcomed so many new businesses. We've welcomed so many people who are not from Reno. I appreciate our generational Nevadans more than I can describe, but we've opened our arms to people from all over the world to come and live and be a part of growing our community. And red from before, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, that's UNLV. That's the rebels down south. And that's
all right.
The rival of our wolf pack here in Reno, University of Nevada, Reno. So we strayed away from red, but red was part of the original Aces logo. Our logo is navy, red, white. We have that hint of silver as the silver state. And so we decided that as Reno has grown, like we're more than a color, more than one color, and this hat can be red. And it's been really fun to watch our fans buy that hat, wear that hat, and see our players in that hat on the field and really stand out against what was always this very serious navy backdrop.
Sure. Well, I mean, all the little design details that you mentioned in that BLC hat are so much fun. And it's why I love doing this podcast, right? Like, I mean, if you put the hat side by side with a photo of the arch with that Reno lettering, that neon, and again, this is an audio medium, so I just have to ask people to go Google this, and I'll put it on my Twitter for sure. But the lettering is perfect and really evokes that neon that's on that arch that welcomes you in. And like I said, I've been to Reno a couple of times. I've never been to an Aces game just because I've never been there at the right time of year, but I really desperately want to get to a game. But I have seen the ballpark courtesy of Shannon Siders, as we now know.
There you go. Yeah. And shout out to Blake O'Brien, our graphic designer, who created the artwork for that BLC hat. And then, we work really closely with New Era. And I think New Era, as you talked about earlier, Paul, there are a lot more of us that are these sort of geeks about logos and hats and get excited about these things. And I think a lot of that is because of the work that New Era has done over so many years to really highlight those designs on really great headwear.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for recognizing your in-house designer, because, my background's in graphic design, and I think it's easy to be sort of nameless as a graphic designer, especially if you're not from one of the big firms. And so, so often we'll just say, oh, this was produced in-house. And so to put Blake's name with this terrific logo that you have on that red hat is, I appreciate you doing that.
Of course. Now, he's well deserved by him.
Emily, I do have some unpleasantness that I need to broach with you here. I collect the little plastic ice cream helmets that they serve at baseball stadiums with the team logos on them. I have about 350 of them. You can't see, it's too far behind me here, but I do have a shelf there with all of my collection of helmets. I do not have an Aces ice cream helmet, and I'm not certain that they exist. Do you all sell ice cream helmets with Aces logos?
We do. I'll have to send you one, Paul. In fact, we have 3 sizes.
What?
We have the ice cream helmet size. We have a medium size helmet for a treat that I don't know, it's more savory. They're called elote fries.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Yeah. So we serve those in the medium size helmet. And then we have a large helmet that actually would fit on your head that we sell our helmet nachos.
All right. So, well, I feel way
sizes.
Better.
It's like those nesting dolls.
I'm not going to ask you to send me anything for free. That's not why I brought it up. I was just afraid maybe the Aces didn't actually have the branded ice cream helmets. So I'm very relieved. Thank you for putting my mind at ease on that one. And I will have to find a way. You don't sell them through the team store. Could I get one through the team store?
We don't. You'd have to be at a game to collect, or know somebody.
All the more reason to show up and have some ice cream at a baseball game then.
There you go.
We mentioned Archie as well. The reason I bring up Archie is because when I wrote the original article about the team, back in, I don't know, it was 2014, 2015, one of the explanations that I understood at that time for the more sort of serious logo and branding is the fact that you really have a much more grown-up population in Reno. That there are, if you compare the number of children attending games in Reno compared to other AAA markets, that it's actually a higher percentage of grown-ups. But you do have this very kid-friendly mascot who is Archie, who is named for the Arch. Is there anything else we need to know about Archie as the mascot, except for that he's a big red guy named for the Arch?
Yeah, he is some version of a Yeti that came from the Sierras, which are the mountains that surround Reno. And he wandered down to the ballpark to find friends. So that is the origin of Archie, and he is beloved by children and adults alike. And it is remarkable. I've been with Archie a couple of times to some different schools for readings or assemblies, and everyone knows his name. He walks in the school and the children just start screaming Archie. And it's pretty fun to see how, as a mascot, he's really taken hold here in Reno. And he's had a couple of different iterations of the costume. And most recently, he's slimmed down just a little bit. He still is nice and rotund and friendly, but slimmed down a little bit because he's been so much more active in making his way around the ballpark, up and down the stairs, giving hugs, high fives, dancing, that he needed to lose a teeny bit of weight to be as active as he is.
That's funny. I like that very much. In regards to your logo set that we were talking about, because we talked about the diamond in the A, and that same A is part of the Aces script that I'm wearing right now on my t-shirt that I got on my visit with Shannon. The secondary logo, though, has a much more specific shout out to playing cards and the gambling industry. And, of course, you can use playing cards for things that are not gambling, right? But it's, I think it's pretty clear that anything related to playing cards in your brand is probably specific to the gambling industry. But the secondary logo that was introduced in that original set in 2009 has a literal baseball diamond with the bases on it, and it's got crossed bats, and then it has a big spade like you would see on a playing card with a very different letter A in it. It's a second letter A that is different from the cap logo A. Is that a logo that gets a lot of use for you guys? Do you see that often at the ballpark? Does the team wear it often?
So that logo has made its way out of our official set, but we use it and sell it in the team store. So okay. Probably the best representation, we do have a lapel pin, and I think that's a very classic baseball item. And so we typically have that available every year on a lapel pin, and then you'll see that crossed bat logo show up on t-shirts and potentially on hats. As we sort of sort through the different iterations of logos we've had throughout the years. With that spade, we use that spade a couple of different ways. We use that spade in the logo I mentioned earlier. The R spade is what we called it. It was an R for Reno on top of the spade. And yeah, at the time, we definitely reflected on the playing card set.
Yeah. Well, so you have obviously the diamond that gets a lot of use. You've got the spade and that secondary logo. Your Copa brand that you referenced earlier, Los Corazones. Is that right? Los Corazones?
Yep, Los Corazones.
Okay. I recognize that my Spanish pronunciation is not good, and I apologize for it. I'm trying to get better. But obviously that is Spanish for the hearts, which is yet another suit in playing cards. So oddly, your baseball club has used everything except for clubs in the suits. But obviously, there's a lot more going on in that Copa brand that you have, Los Corazones. You have the chili peppers. Let's see, the Milagro. I'm on your website now. The Milagro heart at the center symbolizes love, while Milagro means miracle and can bring good luck to its wearer. And then you have the chili peppers represented in there. So It's a terrific, fun logo. I love the Copa brands, just throughout minor league baseball. It's a terrific program. Just to be clear, it was intentional to use a heart because it's another playing card suit. Yes.
Yes, it was. But we love multiple meanings. The other thing about Reno is, and this came from this logo was sort of a collaboration and a summary of all of the conversations we had about celebrating Hispanic heritage in our city and what that would mean. The chili peppers were for food. That's obviously a big theme in the Hispanic culture is food, and not only just eating the food, but the love around the food. So that's another nod to the heart: food, family, love, celebration. The city of Reno, we've got a lot of wedding chapels, and that is something is a part of our city for years and years. A huge history in Reno is the wedding chapel. So that is another meeting of the heart. And that third meeting is absolutely the playing card suit.
You guys are really good at these multiple meanings. I like that a lot. And it's why I love doing this podcast, is I love learning all of those layers of meaning that exist. Reno does such a good job with that. This rebrand, this refresh that Blake is working on will be the first update, apart from, the alternate logos that you've introduced, but this will be the first overall update to the Aces brand since the team was introduced, 13 seasons ago. So that's again, you said much ado about nothing, but that feels like a big deal.
It is. And I don't mean much ado about nothing in a negative way. I mean that I'm thinking of some specific season ticket holders that would say, you had this big launch and everything looks the same. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Take a closer look. This is really, it is a big deal. It is a big deal.
Well, and I feel like you do a good job of educating fans about that and making sure that they're aware. So I don't mean to harp on you saying much ado about nothing. I think it was sort of a little bit of a jab at us logo nerds, but like I said,
which I belong to that group, which is why I'm pumped to be on your show today.
I think that your logo nerddom is really shining through, actually. Like it's
good.
And I appreciate that someone in a general manager position is a logo nerd, because I think that's such an important part of minor league baseball. I mean, making these brands meaningful and accessible, right? Like, I think is such an important part. And I think that's true of minor league baseball more than any other sport, because it is so hyper local, even though, I know there's a movement for teams trying to market themselves outside of their immediate market. But if they're not doing something that's meaningful to the local community, then what are they, they're really doing nothing. They're just creating a generic brand and trying to sell merchandise. So one of the reasons that Reno's brand has long been one of my favorites is because it is so hyper local, and that there are these layers of meaning. And I love that you continued that with the Copa brand. And I can't wait to see what Blake is coming up with for this refresh that we're going to see. Well, Emily, thank you so much. I really have enjoyed this conversation. It's again, so much fun to talk minor league branding with a fellow baseball nerd. And appreciate everything you guys are doing out there. I've always appreciated the Aces on Twitter, because they were one of the first teams to follow me back.
Oh, so, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Our social media team does such a great job, and I love seeing the personality come to life on Twitter. They're very tasteful and witty. And want to give them one more shout out. We're just coming off of winter meetings, and our team took home a golden bobblehead for our specialty jersey night. Remo Sriracha. If you Google Remo Sriracha, the very excited tourist visited Reno a couple of years ago. Hilarious Funny or Die video that he had created about our city. And we took that and ran with it. And as we're talking about design, we took a lot of the elements that he discussed in the video, put them on a Remo Sriracha designed jersey, and we wore that in a game this past season and auctioned it off for charity. And our team took home a golden bobblehead in recognition of the work and creativity around that design and that video.
Well, congratulations to you and your team on that. And what a great name for an award, the Golden Bobblehead.
Yes,
That is
minor league
fantastic.
baseball at its finest, right there.
Absolutely. Well, that is very cool. Where can folks find you online, social media, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so if you want to follow the Reno Aces, we're at Reno Aces on Instagram, at Aces on Twitter. You can, of course, find us, Reno Aces Baseball Club, on LinkedIn and on Facebook. Myself, I'm Emily Jaenson. I'm at Emily Jaenson on Instagram. If you're interested in my podcast, it's at Leadership is Female on Instagram, or just Google Leadership is Female and it'll come up on any of your podcast mediums, Spotify, iTunes, whatever you're looking for.
I can't wait to get to Reno and enjoy in order this elote fries, which sounds amazing. They have elote tots in the sort of medium-sized helmet at the Colorado Rockies. And so I get that whenever I go down there, just down the road. So like a third inning elote tots, a sixth inning ice cream helmet, and then maybe just like one of the nacho things to go, just so that I have it, just that large size helmet. Harder to display on the shelf, but definitely worth having for sure. So, Emily, thank you so much for all the great work that you're doing. And thank you for taking the time to talk to me for Baseball by Design. And I look forward to following your podcast and the Aces and your award-winning social media team.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I am happy to have back my esteemed podcaster colleague, Ed Rivera of the Dad Hat Chronicles. If you don't listen to his podcast, you should listen to his podcast. The Dad Hat Chronicles is an inspiration. I listen to it as soon as it drops every single week, in part because Ed and I share an affinity for the same style of hat. And also through that, Ed has cultivated an appreciation and knowledge of minor league baseball logos. And so this is going to be a recurring thing here on the podcast, as long as Ed will answer the phone when I call. We'll see how long that lasts. But
that'll
Ed,
be a yes.
Ed, welcome back. I'm glad to see you again.
Absolutely. It's good to be back, my friend.
Oh, man. I'm so excited for our plans, by the way. We referenced this last time you were on, but you're coming out to Colorado with your wife and your daughter, who likes to time her crying at bedtime for when you record podcasts.
It never fails. Never fails.
But you guys are coming to visit in September, and we're going to go see the brand new Northern Colorado Owls, relocated from Orem, Utah, keeping the Z on the end of their name, which, I could sort of take or leave. But then right down the road from me is Denver, where of course we have the Colorado Rockies. And then just down the road from that is Colorado Springs, where the Rocky Mountain Vibes play. So we're going to do 3 games in 3 days in September. It's the only weekend in the entire baseball season. I couldn't believe this when I researched it. The only weekend in the entire baseball season when all 3 of those teams have home games.
It's insane.
So watch it be like a September blizzard or something, right? Like watch it.
Right. Believe
Welcome
me,
to Colorado.
My wife might not join us at the cold games, but I will be there, hat, gloves, and everything. But I will be at the game if they still play.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be warm in Colorado in September. It doesn't. It does weird things in Colorado, but September's fine. So
there you go. Love it.
I didn't ask this last time you were on, and I know you get this question all the time. How many hats do you have?
Right now I have about 100 and I want to say 97.
Okay.
3 away from 200. Goal is to get obviously 1 hat for every year, and then after that keep going.
Perfect.
But 197 as of right now. Dad hats only, just dad hats. I have other hats,
sure,
but dad hats is 197.
197. Well, you've got literally about 4 times more than I do. I have like 40 and change. So it's I don't have any hope of ever catching you on the dad hats. Ed, are you do you play the games? Do you play the games in Reno or Vegas? Or do you have
So me and my wife, we've been to Vegas once, It was for her job. So I was in the middle of school. So I was doing homework during the day while she was in the conference. And then at night we went, I played a couple of, machines, I just, did it just so it's just to say that I did it.
Yep.
But I kind of like, not losing money.
Yeah.
Although I've been losing money with hats, but whatever.
You're not losing money. You're gaining hats.
I'm gaining experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question, right? I mean, what do you have money for if not for that then? So
that's right.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Reno Aces here. First of all, I just want to get your, like I said, as a hat collector and a student of minor league branding, you're developing a sharp eye for logos and what works and what doesn't. So what's your sense for this Reno Aces logo?
A lot of you have a lot of hats out there that are like, very complex. They have a lot of details and all that. And then you have teams like the Reno Aces who just all they did was put an A and the diamond on the A and it works. Yeah. Right. Simplicity. A lot of people are like, oh, you got to put more. No. Let's keep it simple. And it works. I love their logo. I think it's simple and yet it stands out among all of the other logos out there.
Yeah. I agree with that. And their explanation for why they have a sort of simpler brand and a more sort of grown up brand is because they play in a sort of grown up market, right? Like there's just not a lot of kids in Reno necessarily. And so, they don't need a teddy bear for a logo, right? Like they don't, in the article I wrote for sportslogos.net, they told me, they were like, we don't have an Ewok for our logo because we don't need Ewoks.
That makes sense.
You're not going to see it. So so they've got like these, this cool, like sort of playing card motif, right? With like you say, the diamond, and they've got a version with a spade in it. And so do you have one in your collection that you like?
Not yet, actually. They've been added to the wheel of Dad Hats.
Very nice.
But I don't have one yet. It took a while for the simple fact that like I was trying to get I always, how I do, right? I always go on the websites. I spend a lot of time on minorleaguebaseball.com and things like that. So I always got to make sure that they have something updated. I tend to sometimes wait a little bit too much on like if they have a 47 brand. But if they have a 920, then I'll go ahead and add them. So I got to make sure that before I put them on the wheel that they actually have something. Because it kind of, I don't want to put, have an egg on my face when I say, hey, we got the Reno Aces and you don't have a hat, right? So
the Wheel of Hats is one of my favorite things. And if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Ed's Wheel of Hats, it's this spectacular thing that Ed, and usually your daughter is with you.
Yep.
And you spin the Wheel of Hats.
Just leave it up to fate. Fate will decide which hat I get.
Absolutely. And it's so much fun. And I watch it. I'm always a little bit like, oh, come on. Like, because I sometimes have ones that I'm rooting for. So, So given that you don't have an Aces cap in the collection right now, you're on their website now. What are the options and which one do you like?
Well, they have, I'm going to give you two options. I'm going to give you one for men and one for women. Okay. Let's start with the women, which they have their, it is their 47A logo cleanup hat.
Okay.
This one, again, it goes with the A, right? And it's simple. Yeah. You keep it as simple as possible. And you go from there. One thing that I don't see here is I don't know if you know this, but I am a huge fan of the tag on the back of the hat.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. No, that's interesting.
I'm a fan of that. And the only reason I like it is because a lot of the times when I do buy a hat is they have their secondary logo or, a third logo, the alternate logo. And on the tag, they always have the primary logo.
Right.
So I'm a fan of that. Right. For women, there's that one. And then for men, it's on the 920. It's all black with the A as well. They're simple. And by the way, guys, this one is on sale right now. So make sure you guys go on the website. It is $20 right now. So
awesome.
We go back to what we were saying, right? It's cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. Affordable. Yeah. Way less expensive to get the Dad Hat. And, and that's some next level analysis right there with the tag on the back. I mean, that's really worth thinking about. I'll tell you which one I like, and I don't have an Aces hat. I have an Aces t-shirt, and I regret that I don't have an Aces hat. I would have to avoid anything that made it accidentally look like I was a Braves fan, because I'm very not
Right.
very,
I get it. You're right. As a Phillies fan, I would get that. Yeah.
very much so, very much so. But I like this one with the BLC on it that Emily and I were talking about, where they've got the type that sort of reflects the Reno arch and the sort of neon lights that say biggest little city in America. And so I think that is very, very cool right there. So
that's a nice one. I'm waiting for them to have their Copa hat on a Dad hat, which I have not seen it yet. The Los Corazones.
Yeah.
So that's a cool one as well once they drop it on a Dad hat. But man, that's those two, biggest little city, and then the Corazones, those are cool ones to keep an eye on.
Awesome. I hope, and just hearing you pronounce the name of their Copa brand, I hope that you have been forgiving me as you've been listening to Baseball by Design for my Spanish pronunciation, because I recognize that it needs work.
No, it's actually funny you say that, because I think you and me, I go running and I listen to your episode. So, and then you told me that you go running and listen to my episode.
Yeah.
I listened to it the other day, and you actually do a very good job. I got to give you kudos, my man. You do a really good job pronunciating a Spanish word, which is, a lot of the times our language can get a little very difficult to pronounce those Spanish words. So you're doing a great job. Keep it going, my man.
You are your signature persona online is that you are very kind, and you are continuing to be very kind.
Gotta spread that positivity out there, my man.
Oh, you're so good at that. Ed, remind everyone where they can find you, the podcast, and you on social media.
All right. So the podcast is the Dad Hat Chronicles. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I'm even on Facebook podcast right now. They have it on there, which is nuts. So listen, I am not ashamed to say I will put my podcast wherever people can find it.
Absolutely.
Right. That's what we're here for. And then as far as social media, I'm most active on Twitter and Instagram. So it's at the Dad Hat 216. You can find me there. Tag me on when you purchase a hat. I will definitely make sure to take a look at it and say kudos to you.
You are absolutely missing out if you are not following Ed on social media and listening to the Dad Hat Chronicles podcast. I am very glad to have discovered you on Twitter. Glad for our plans that we have coming up, and looking forward to speaking to you about more teams. We've already got a couple more lined up down the road, and we'll be talking again. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite segments on the podcast. So thank you for being here, Ed.
As long as you have me, I will come on, my friend.
Perfect. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, care, bud.